It's PragerU. Oh my God, yes. PragerU is the easiest thing. PragerU is free content. Dennis Prager is it's really hard to call this. Dennis Prager might be the dumbest conservative on YouTube. He's at least the easiest to pick apart. To be clear, 1984 was written by a socialist named George Orwell. And now here are some capitalist conservatives who are going to talk about it.
Welcome back to the book club. I'm Michael Knowles. The book this month, very timely, 1984 by George Orwell. But first, in our fast-paced world, it is tough to make reading a priority. We all know that. Well, at least it used to be. But at thinker.org, they summarize the key ideas from new and noteworthy nonfiction, giving you access to an entire library.
And you can call me Winston throughout this. We should just call each other Winston.
We are living
because we're all Winston now.
Yes. Winston, the protagonist of 1984. Tell me if this sounds to you
Yes.
like a paragraph of a novel or like a news story about our world right now.
Wait, before you even read the quote, you could literally pick any quote
Yes.
from the book, and it is applicable now. So whatever you're going to
You're right.
say,
No, you're right.
I am going to agree, but I will jump off.
I've noticed this one actually, some people have been picking up on this. 1984 is having a sort of renaissance
It
these
is.
days.
Yeah.
Every record has been destroyed or falsified. Every book has been rewritten. Every picture has been repainted. Every statue and street and building has been renamed. Every date has been altered. And that process is continuing day by day and minute by minute. History has stopped. Nothing exists except an endless present in which the party is always right.
So aside from the fact that this is absolute bullshit, 1984 is one of the best books I've ever read in my entire life. You should definitely read it.
Sounds like life on Twitter.
Yes.
Right?
Sounds like life on Twitter.
I mean, an endless present, and that was part of what the system was trying to do. The Ministry of Truth.
An endless present? Holy shit. Oh my God. No, the Ministry of like communications or corrections or something within 1984 from the party, that is not it. It wasn't an endless present. It literally changed what the history was. It changed what like the document said, like physically. It was completely different from this. That is totally different from a constant stream of new information from around the world. That's a totally different fucking thing.
Winston worked there, and he was one of the people that was basically using language.
Yeah, I bet all conservatives do doublethink. I bet Michael does doublethink this whole time. Fucking Michael knows. I guarantee.
To confuse people. He was intentional. I mean, that was the whole purpose of all of this, was to get people to question everything. Right?
Well,
what is 2 + 2 equal?
No. Hold on. If you talk about the book, the purpose was not to get people to question anything. It was for people to doublethink. It was literally the opposite of questioning. The goal was to get you to not question anything and blindly accept what the party says, no matter what. There's a perfect example in the book where chocolate rations went down to like 3 from 5. And then a month later, the exact same story was reported of a month ago. The generous party had raised our rations from 2 to 3. And everyone was like, yep. They like genuinely were like, yes, that is what happened. That's the point. That is what Orwell is talking about, is the idea of like actually doublethink.
Again, I mean, this was the ultimate purpose.
I want to get to this language because I think this is the rookie. I'll just a quick summary for those of you who haven't read it yet. And if anyone hasn't read it, I guess you're getting the real life experience of it, but it's still worth reading to help you understand.
Getting the real life experience of it. That's a fucking joke. Go live in North Korea and you tell me which fucking government is closer to 1984 in the party. Just saying, I've read it, but you should summarize the book for those watching who haven't. Okay, so 1984 is a book about from the point of view of a man named Winston. Winston lives within a place called Oceania, which basically is everywhere except for East Europe and West Europe, Eurasia and East Asia. Excuse me. And all 3 of them are fighting all the time, but they're never actually fighting for like any additional land. They're fighting so that there is always a fight. Another aspect of doublethink is like 1 week they might be allied with East Asia, and both of them are working together against fucking Eurasia, and then it might be switched the next week, and everyone actually believes that it's always been that way. The idea that it's basically that, and then there's an extremely overpowering authoritarian fascist government, and I cannot possibly do justice to just how like in your fucking life they are. So you should definitely just read it. Go on an Audible or something.
And especially your world right now. It's about Winston, as you say. Winston is this guy. He's living in a totalitarian state called Oceania.
Yep.
It's all run by one party. He's in the outer party. He's still in the party. He's in the outer party. There's the inner party that really runs things. He works at the Ministry of Truth. What does the Ministry of Truth do? Spreads lies.
Spreads lies.
Rewrites
True.
the past.
That's
Branding.
facts.
It's all about branding.
It's all about
right?
branding. They have this area where they torture political dissidents. What's it called? The Ministry of Love. And they're the totalitarian government is referred to as Big Brother. Big Brother is always watching you through screens. Through
No, okay. Quick correction. This is just him. I think just actually being wrong. Big Brother is like a face. It's not like actually the party. They don't refer to the party as Big Brother. Like Big Brother is like literally like a person. Like it's a personified person.
TV cameras always monitoring you. Winston has this sort of illegal love affair with this girl Julia, and
Facts.
they're just trying to escape this modern totalitarian madness. Finally, they're caught out.
Doesn't end well.
Does
for
not
them.
end well for him. And then, as you just alluded to, at the very end,
Oh,
they're
this
torturing
guy's-
him and torturing him, trying
Oh, they're gonna spoil it. Spoilers ahead.
to break his spirit and trying to break his mind. How do they do it?
He fears rats, and they put basically a contraption on him with rats, and they're trying to, in effect, get him to sort of out himself and her and the people that are rebelling, in essence. And he basically points to her and causes them to put the rat trap on her, and
Sells her
that's
out.
sort of what we're dealing with right now.
Well,
I mean,
and there's also this point, once he says, go get her, go get
Yeah.
her, there's this intellectual admission where they say, what is 2 + 2?
Yeah.
And what is 2 +
and
2 is 4?
yeah, no,
No.
5.
You have to say, you have to believe that 2 + 2 = 5.
Yeah.
Look, everything, it's
That's
so
true.
bizarre to see this.
Dave Rubin's interjections are almost always pointless. When I did this on stream, we theorized that the moments when Dave actually talks about the book were scripted and shot afterwards. That's probably true.
Right now, or to read this. So I originally read the book, I think I was in 11th grade. So this is like 92 or something like that, 93. It's a long time ago. And then I reread it over the last couple months. And, on Twitter, it's like everything that we're seeing, nothing means anything anymore. The way words are constantly used, or everything that we hear, without making this too political to the day right now.
Hard
So much
not
of
to.
it is hard not to, but so much of what we hear about from the left is exactly what 1984 is about. So words are violence now, but violence is not violence. These are things that they create to actually make us question everything. And then
Yeah,
once
it's
you question
doublethink.
everything, well, then gender is up for question, and all of the things
Oh, I'm trying to compare it to this.
that should be settled are no longer settled. And then what I completely forgot about that I found was interesting is that one of the things that they're also trying to sort of untie, that the Ministry of Truth is trying to untie, is the idea of time. And it does feel like right now that time feels a little weird. It's partly because of the lockdown, partly because we're trapped at home, we're all on social media. But doesn't time feel sort of strange?
Okay. Oh my fucking god! There's such a big fucking difference between the book and the world we live in right now, and it's fucking ridiculous how people eat this shit up. Okay, so right now when we're on lockdown, businesses won't, for the most part, let you inside. That is very different from if you open your door and have the idea, I think I'm gonna go outside after curfew. You will be kidnapped and tortured. There's a big fucking difference between those two fucking things.
Right now, like anything could happen at any given minute.
Right.
And I think that all leads to a sort of, sick society where 2 + 2 eventually will be 5 if they just tell you.
There are so many of these contradictions or absurdities that come up. I mean, the 3
Yep.
slogans of the party that you
Yeah.
always
Yep.
got to repeat. They've got it on the back of the book right here. War is peace.
Yep.
Freedom is slavery. Ignorance is strength.
Mhm.
This could be the chance of protesters that we see marching all around the West.
Oh my god, you're fucking stupid.
Quite literally. I mean, one of the things that I talk about all the time now is that it's the anti-racists who are the racists.
You're right.
now.
You're a racist, Rubin.
Right? If all the people that are running around now proclaiming that the rest of us are racist,
Yeah, protesters are getting kidnapped, but I mean, at least. You know what? I think you might be right. I mean, there's still a major difference between what happens in 1984, like the idea of like thought crime and stuff, and like what's happening right here. But like, yeah, but Dave Rubin doesn't realize that it's coming from the opposite end from what he's arguing against.
they're the ones that are pushing racism into society everywhere. They're the ones that are saying black people should have special dorms and that white people shouldn't, be.
Yeah, I disagree with segregation. That's just like black ethno-state people. Like there are people who are like black ethno-state. Keep black people away from white people, or I guess they would phrase it, keep white people away from black people. I disagree with that.
allowed to have certain jobs or that they shouldn't be considered equally. Those are racist notions. So
But they
we live
shouldn't be considered equal. Is he talking about? Is he talking about affirmative action? Is Dave talking about affirmative action? He's just
in a
stupid.
time where everything has been flipped. And for the few of us that have a little bit of the spark of Winston, it's like, how do you make sure you're not one of the people who at the end is going 2 + 2 = 5? I'm not sure. I will tell you one other thing. I'm actually watching The Handmaid's Tale right now. Did you watch it by any chance?
I did. I've seen some of it. Not the whole thing.
So I'm watching it right now, and the parallels to 1984 are absolutely incredible, because this is exactly what the main character June is going through. And it's so funny because the show came out a couple of years ago, and everyone kept saying this is what's happening in Trump's America. Except I'm watching it now in the midst of what's happening with Black Lives Matter and everything else, and it's like, no, it's all the left.
It's this America.
Yo, this guy's fucking ridiculous. BLM has zero actual like legislative power. Oh my god. Every negative thing that has happened under this administration is because of executive fucking power. Are you kidding me? BLM has cultural power. That's fucking it. That's it. That's all it is. But legislative power, you can't make fucking parallels to a corrupt government that's called the party, and that's it. That owns the majority of the world, and then be like, yeah, that's fucking, that's it, Like, this is the world in an organization I disagree with. Can we make a distinction between a black ethno-state and black nationalism? There's a lot of literature on black anarchists, about anarchist black nationalism. So black nationalism is basically when you believe in your identity within your own country, and you believe that black should be held up above other people, in the same way that white nationalism is like, you believe that white people should be held up above like any other peoples, whereas an ethno-state on either side is you are advocating for a society of only that race, of that ethnicity, and you specifically advocate for those two things. That is not the way that black national. Okay, explain to me what black nationalism is.
This America, it's not
left-wing.
Trump that's doing this. It's the other guys that are
It
doing
is
it.
Trump that's doing
So
this.
I think more than anything else, there's a beautiful
And
thing.
it's also, he's not doing anything near what 1984 is doing, but he's still fascist.
You read a work of fiction when you can go, holy cow. This was not only, it must have been true or true enough to have made sense when it was written. What year was the book written?
The book was, I guess, written in 1948, published, I think, in 1949.
Okay, so 49. I mean, think about that, 70 plus years ago. But yet,
The article for you, if you don't want another white person to explain it. I don't give a shit if another white person explains it. It doesn't matter to me. If you fairly represent it, like if you fairly and accurately represent and define what that is, then sure. I feel like I did, but you're saying I didn't, so I'm willing to hear you out.
feels literally
Yeah. Welcome to the stream.
right now. That's an incredible compliment to a writer and to a work.
And he articulates this concept. I mean, I think the great one you use is that the people who say they're anti-racist are the ones who...
Is soggy biscuit a capitalism or a capitalistic invention, and did it arrive from communism? Okay, so the soggy biscuit. I think this is a joke, but I don't want to. I've never heard of this before. Is this like a real thing? Okay, it's okay. Tight. That is commie as fuck.
Who are acting in a racist way. And the way George Orwell describes it is he calls it doublethink.
Mm-hmm.
So doublethink is this idea that you hold two contradictory ideas at exactly the same time. So you can never admit that the ideas don't make any sense. But so, for instance, we have to get rid of America.
Okay, the CDLR is the black nationalism is representative of interests, not of black national identity. Kind of similar to the way Black Panthers were black nationalists, but didn't like America. Okay, well, I mean, white and I guess I just assumed. I mean, if they want to define those terms that way, okay. Then I guess I'll whatever. If they coined the term, I'll take their word for it. I just thought that black nationalism was going to be the same thing that white nationalism was. That would make all of the sense. So is that Harrison Bergerton? I don't even know who the fuck that is. Harrison Bergerton. Through the monkey house. Jesus Christ. I don't have TF2. Someone just invited me to a game of TF2 and I don't have it. So that's why I said that, just so you know. But that is how the literature reads. Okay. Better looking, more physical. Okay. I kind of want to check this out. I'll check that out another time.
This
That looks
terrible
cool.
past which had segregation. And the way we're going to do that is institute segregation.
Through segregation. Look,
Yeah.
think about it this way. What's like the hottest book on the left right now? It's White Fragility.
Yes.
What's the subtitle of White Fragility? I don't know what it is exactly, but in essence, it's something like how white people can blah, blah, blah. That's racist.
Yeah.
White Fragility subtitle. I might have spelled fragility wrong. No, I didn't. Lucky me. Why it's so hard for white people to talk about racism. That's not racist. That's literally not racist. But whatever, Dave.
That in and of
Right,
itself is racist.
Yeah.
Forget white fragility. Well, but then if you say how white people, the implication is all white people are this, whatever this is. That is racist. So they hold these two ideas that are completely at odds with each other, and they hold it because that allows you to believe anything basically at any given time.
This is the key.
Yeah.
You know, so many words
Wow.
just have entered.
This guy is fucking dumb. It really comes down to supporting the struggle of the oppressed minority. The solution to the problem can still be anarchist. Sure. I'm not an anarchist personally, but
our language because of this book.
Mhm.
Words like doublethink or Newspeak,
Mhm.
or Big Brother is one. And Newspeak is the one I want to focus on because
Yeah.
Newspeak is political correctness.
Yeah.
And the theory of
no,
Newspeak
it's not.
is that
No, it isn't. No, it isn't. It is not that. That is not what it is. That is a severe mischaracterization. Newspeak is things like so like for example, instead of saying like this is fantastic, you'd say that's good double plus. It's good double plus. If you say this is great, that's good plus. If you say this is good, that's good, right? Newspeak is designed specifically within the book to limit the number of words that the people know, because if I didn't know what authoritarianism meant, if I didn't know what fascism meant, if I didn't know what government was, if I didn't know like what anything was, I could not. I like physically couldn't. It would be impossible for me to form the thoughts in my head to say that I am against that, right? Even if I didn't know the word, I could still probably come up with the concept of like, well, this is what is happening to me. I just don't have a word for it. But like, if I know so few words, I physically cannot have that thought. There's nothing that leads me to that. It's all abstract. I cannot do anything with it. So that's what Newspeak is. Newspeak is designed to make it so that people speak in less words, to make it harder for people to actually like think and like figure stuff out for themselves. They want everyone to be reliant on the party.
Big Brother is going to get rid of all the old language that people have used for centuries and centuries and replace it with this new ideological, party-approved, clean language, which sounds robotic. It sounds
Okay. So party approved. That's very fucking different from political correctness. That's super different. Party approved for their own gain in the terms of like furthering their ability to control their own people, which is so different from being politically correct.
so crazy. Instead of saying something is bad, you'll say it's ungood or double plus ungood.
Right. But so what does that sound like right now? It sounds like he, him, they,
Yes.
her, all of these things. So again, it's like, wow.
Jesus fucking Christ. What does that sound like? Expanding our vocabulary to other different types of like pronouns and being accepting to new people? That's the same thing.
How did he do this in 1948? I'm not
Yeah.
exactly sure. I think there's some relation to, it's after World War II, and there's obviously some parallels to the way the Nazis use language and things like that. But it's still pretty remarkable.
And I guess the premise, as you touched on,
Yeah.
is that if I change my words, if I change the language, I will change reality.
Mhm.
And this ties into the insistence of the government. You have to believe that 2 + 2 = 5, because if we all really believe that, then that will be true. And it seems to be the same thing when you call a he, when you call him, her, you have really substantively changed who he is.
Yeah. Well, what's interesting about this is
Holy shit, dude. Oh my god. This is no. First of all, an identity exists in and of itself. So if someone identifies as something, that's what they are, because that's what by definition what an identity is. Yeah, they are serious, which is kind of crazy. So this is why I don't like politicians shouldn't do fucking book reviews. They're not literature experts, they're not philosophy experts, and you need to be both to actually fully understand this book. I don't fully understand this book, but I'm not pretending to. They are pretending to. It's fucking crazy.
I think when most people, maybe not my conservative friends, but when most people think of like the totalitarian, authoritarian
Yeah.
state coming, they always think it's going to be a far right state. Like the idea in 1984 is that the ministry
They always think it's gonna be a full right. They always think it's gonna come from an authoritarian type group. They always think that. What? That.
of truth, like the whole apparatus is somehow thought of as far right, I
Yeah.
think, is the idea. If you like something like V for Vendetta, it's the idea is that it's this far right political
Yeah.
machine that's silent.
Okay. Holy shit. Yeah. Okay. So, what's the far left? The far left is anarchism. That's the farthest left you can go. Is in an anarcho-communist actually, is the farthest you can go. And if we're specifically talking about social issues, then the farthest you can go is an anarchist. You cannot oppress an entire portion of the planet if you are a fucking anarchist state. You can't do that. Or an anarchist government, not an anarchist state. Excuse me, that's an oxymoron. But, oh my god, that's why. Because you're dumb, Dave Rubin.
Silencing people and everything else. And yet, look what's happening in reality now. In reality now, it's this far left thing that's seemingly bubbling up from the bottom.
Yeah.
And that's an interesting flip on this. So it's one of those things where it's like there's so much truth, and yet there's still these like offshoots where you can kind of go, oh, it's not exactly right, but it's like it's pretty much there.
Well, even
No,
slightly
it's
beyond
not.
1980.
It's pretty much there. No, it's not.
But still on the themes and still on George Orwell. George Orwell wrote a very famous essay called Politics in the English Language. And in it, he says that the word fascism no longer has any meaning. All fascism means is something I don't like. And when you look around today, that word, probably more than any other word, has been abused beyond having any meaning.
Yeah.
Oh, from the people who call every single person who is right of center and further left a fucking socialist. That is rich coming from these people.
Well, I think one of the interesting things is the way that we're all guilty of it at times, the way we all can use these words to mean more than they're supposed to mean, or we widen them. But look, this is something we've talked about forever. You call everybody a Nazi, congratulations, now nobody's a Nazi. You call everybody a fascist, and then when the real fascists come, nobody is going to be listening.
But when you actually call out fascists, and you point out the fascist rhetoric and you point out the fascist policies and the authoritarian policies, that's when you can say maybe he's actually a fascist.
Or paying attention, it's the boy who cried wolf in essence. So I think there's
this whole thing is literally just to delegitimize the idea that Trump is a fascist. That's all it is. That's all they're trying to do.
Just sort of there's this endless destruction of everything that's true. I guess that's really what the book is about in many ways, more than anything else.
Yes.
That there is truth. There actually is truth, and there actually is history, and there actually is time and a chronology that shows us what is real. But if you can destroy that, if you can destroy that fabric, you can get people to say 2 + 2 is 5, and it'll make sense.
So I'm obviously frustrated as I read this because I look around and I say, oh my gosh, it's really happening. There's this one bit of the story that a lot of people don't talk about, but there's this recurring old nursery rhyme that Winston and Julia keep going back to, and the line goes, oranges and lemons, say the bells of St. Clement's. You owe me 3 farthings, say the bells of St. Martin's. And they seem to get this real joy, this real pleasure out of going back. There's just some nursery rhyme. It certainly doesn't sound like anything that now the party-controlled language talks about anymore. So there's this other part where Winston is getting down and dirty with Julia, right? She tells him that she's been with lots of men before him. And instead of being repulsed by that, Winston gets excited and he says,
"Yeah, I love
anything
this.
that hinted."
Oh, I love this bit. This part was written so amazingly, and it really got you to understand how amazing of a character Winston is, and how like in depth of a character that Orwell
corruption
wrote him as.
always filled him with a wild hope. In this clinical ideological society, how is it that actually a little bit of corruption fills you with hope?
Well, because humans are supposed to use
How much do you want to bet that they're going to completely misrepresent this specific point?
their imagination. We're supposed to hope. We're supposed to dream. We're supposed to have passion. We're supposed to have sex. We're supposed to live, right? Like we're supposed to do all of those
Supposed to make
things.
mistakes.
You're supposed to make mistakes. You're supposed to do things so that you can either realize they're good things to do that fulfill you, or maybe they don't, or they do in the short term, and then you have to reevaluate all those things. But in a super sterilized world, when you can never break that conformity, then the tiniest hint, oh, I'm sleeping with somebody who's really been around the block, is suddenly really exciting. And by the way, we see.
Okay, so that's not what excited Winston. I was fucking right. The thing that excited Winston was not that he got to break from the status quo. It's that Julia had fucked inner party members, which is a big deal, because they're supposed to be the incorruptible. They're supposed to be the people who are absolutely perfect. And that's why he was so turned on. The idea that even those people can be corrupted, that everyone beyond his understanding, everyone within the inner party who's actually running shit, who claims to be perfect, he now has proof that are not perfect. That's what turned him on. That's the corruption that he liked a lot. It wasn't the fact that he got to do that, okay, in an authoritarian state. Sure, I'm sure he loved it. But that's not what this fucking passage is about.
Many versions of that right now with political correctness, which is sort of like, if you keep everybody completely politically correct all the time, suddenly we'll all start wanting to be not politically correct. Now, I think that's good right now, right? We need more people to break out of it. But, the idea of political correctness generally comes, I think, like most things, it's the road to hell is paved with good intentions. When people say they want to be politically correct, they want to make sure that people aren't offended. Now, you do that too long, and what are you left with? You're left with just nothing. You're left with an inability to do anything. So
you're left with kindness. Now, I'm not necessarily in favor of like political correctness. Like that's not necessarily something that I love, but like that's what you get when everyone's politically correct, is that everyone else feels more comfortable in the society that they live in. Like, I don't know what to fucking tell you.
So when we watch people cancel each other on Twitter and we watch mobs and everything go
Yeah,
after
cancel
everybody,
culture is bullshit, though.
in a way, they're trying to pretend they're pious. I'm so great. And
Right.
if anyone else steps out of line and says something that I don't like, I don't believe, I'll destroy them because I'm so much better.
Because I'm so much better, and because
Yeah.
human nature can be perfected. Right? I mean, that's
Well,
sort
of course it can be.
I mean,
Of course.
Dude, they're pulling hamstrings because they're stretching so fucking hard to do, like, they're trying so hard to completely misrepresent this socialist fucking author talking about the people that they agree with, the people that they vote for. These are the people he is talking about when he's referring to the party.
we're on the path
Like, he's rolling in his fucking grave right now, I promise.
there.
If
And
only we had the right language and
The
the
right
erasure
language.
of time and the erasure of statues
Little more
and everything
power.
else. A little more power is always good.
this
Yeah.
is why when I think of Newspeak, when I think of Winston talking about the corruption, it reminds me that political correctness, which is our own version of Newspeak, it doesn't just divide along ideological lines perfectly,
Mhm.
or rather, should I say, partisan lines.
Mhm.
It's not like it's only Democrats and no Republicans.
Absolutely.
Actually, what a lot of surveys show is that a big dividing line is wealth, how much money you make. People who would be considered
Yes. Now he's getting into the meat and the bones.
by the lights of our society elites tend to be much more okay with political correctness than people who are at the lower rung.
What's the difference between an old crazy woman and an old eccentric woman? It's money, right? If you're an old woman with no money and you're babbling on, you're the crazy cat lady. And if
Right.
you're an old woman who's rich, she's eccentric.
What a character.
Yeah, that's it. I mean, that really is it.
This is one of the famous lines that Winston writes in his diary. He says, "If there is hope, it lies in the proles. The proles, like the proletarians, or the
Mhm.
lower class of people. They don't really follow all these rules. They're kind of
Proletarians? Yeah. Oh, I wonder if they even know what the fuck a proletarian is. I wonder. I wonder if he
ignored
knows what
by
that is.
the party.
There's another word for that.
What's that?
The deplorables.
The deplorables.
According to the party, bro, but not in the narrative and the analogy that, or sorry, the fuck, what's that word that starts with an A? Allegory that this is trying to demonstrate. Not within the narrative at all. This is strictly within the whole, like, within, like, the storyline.
Irredeemable.
Yeah, the irredeemables. That's exactly what
It's
it means.
not
It means that
irredeemables. They're born into it.
if there's any hope, it's that the people who the system constantly throws out, constantly mocks, constantly tries to destroy, they're the only ones who will be able to say something true.
Yeah.
Even right now, just listening to what goes on in the political ether, it's like I hear a lot of people being like, I'd love to pull a John Galt one day, and just disappear altogether.
Come from
Because-
Ayn Rand,
from-
another
from-
book to read these days.
I assume you've done Atlas Shrugged.
Not yet,
You haven't done it yet?
but
Okay.
we have to do
Yeah,
it.
so, but that people will just self-select out, and then you know who will be left? The only people who will have a flicker of anything interesting to say will be the deplorables.
Right.
Yeah.
This deplorable issue, I think, comes up. I think there is a sense that the elites are just not even aware. The party is not even aware of the seeds of its own destruction. But there is a little bit of a performance.
Kind of feels like now,
Kind
doesn't
of,
it?
it does.
Yeah.
But the performance is what worries me even most. You mentioned Twitter.
Yeah.
On Twitter, it seems like every day now, some random person is plucked out of obscurity. We are all whipped up into a frenzy to hate this person.
Thinking something in Central Park that
I didn't like that she yelled at a guy or whatever.
Yeah.
And now
There's something in Central Park. Oh, what about the Central Park 5, pal?
this person is the villain of the country.
Yes.
And then that's gone, goes down the memory hole. Remember, another term that comes from 1984 is completely erased and forgotten about. There was a category in 1984 called 2 minutes hate.
Mhm.
Every day, all the people in the party are whipped up to hate the villain, the
He's
rebel.
trying. Oh, he's stretching.
The Goldstein. Goldstein is the
Yeah.
they put him on the TV screen. You got to just hate this guy.
Yeah.
2 minutes, then it's over, then you move on.
Yeah, sort of feels like The Purge, right? The movie The Purge. I mean, the idea is you get one day a year to do all the horrible stuff. That's what
I do think. I think you're right. I think he definitely 100% like scripted all these questions or these answers to the questions.
the movie The Purge is about. And yes, this is what we do. We find these people who are nobodies that have no effect over your life that you've never heard of. They did something you don't like. Destroy them.
Yeah.
And what's
Oh my god. Okay. Jeez. Okay. So I really don't want to have to go into why this is so fucking different every single time that they completely misrepresent a position. But that's what this video is for. I just have a headache. Okay. So the 2 minutes hate is put forward to a guy who did do something wrong in the eyes of the party. What he did was he like rebelled against the party. He supposedly runs like an underground like uprising. Now the 2 minutes hate is done by the party to is another brainwashing tactic to try to be like, okay, this person sucks and you fucking hate this person. There's a big difference between that. How long till I can sub? I have to go through like the tax papers first because by the way, guys, I just got affiliate. Yeah, I have to go through like the taxes and stuff first before I can actually like get affiliate. So within 3 business days, I guess. There's a big difference between the government like mandating that, and if you like, if you aren't angry enough at the TV, that you will literally be captured and tortured. And there's a difference between that and then going like, hey, this person's kind of fucked up because of the thing that they said. Now, that being said, I don't agree with cancel culture by any means. I think that's fucked up. But like, there's just such a big difference between these things.
And really, it's never about them, right? It's always about the signal that that sends across the world, which is you don't want to be that guy.
Right.
You don't want to be that guy. But wait, there's one other thing I want to touch on.
No. I would agree that it's more about the signal than the individual, but the signal is not you don't want to be this guy, like it is with Goldstein. Uh, with cancel culture, the statement of this across the world is fucking don't say this shit because this is what'll happen to you. I guess that's kind of I guess that's the same thing. All right, I'm wrong.
Which is as he's working at the Ministry of Truth and as he's obscuring reality and changing words and all this stuff, he's miserable.
Yeah.
And I think that that's actually really interesting because I think if we look at the people who are the most politically correct now, they are miserable because that is not, it's anti-human in many ways.
Really fucking weird fallacy.
To be so against thought, to be so against someone joking, even if that joke crosses whatever your subjective line is, to be so against that is actually the reverse of what being a human is, which is about using your mind. So I think it's just sort of interesting that the people that were the ones putting this stuff into the world were miserable.
Are the
while they
most
were doing
miserable.
it. Yeah.
And Winston, he needs to take shots of this gross gin just to get through the day. But then when he's got this love affair, this little secret hideout with Julia, all of a sudden he doesn't need the gin. He doesn't need the substances.
And by the way, you know, they've done a couple articles I've seen about Facebook censors that all become alcoholics and miserable and suicidal. I'm not kidding. Because they're literally doing the exact same thing Winston is doing. They're
I'd be interested to see that. How much whatever they don't like fucking link that in the chat because it's probably bullshit. Yeah, it's probably not true.
looking out on Facebook and they're going, what can we get rid of? What word is okay? What word is not okay? Do I kind of like this guy? Then I can let that one slide. Do I don't like this guy? So we got to take care of that. And they become miserable because of it.
But the most depressing part of this book,
Yes,
I thought we'd already gotten there.
So it was funny because when I was rereading it, I was like, there has to be something at the end that will kind of like want us to continue, right? Especially people like us that put our thoughts out there, right? And it doesn't really give you anything.
The most depressing part of this book for me is that there's this rebellion, that this revolution, the 2 minutes of hate, Goldstein, right? Goldstein has a secret book, and the book is going to tell you all about that party, and it's going to... So Winston meets these other people in the inner party. They give him the secret book. He reads the secret book, and it turns out it's a setup. Or if it's not a setup, it's still a setup. Because he's given the book by a member of the inner party that in this system, it even has its own opposition within it.
Yeah, that's true. That's, again, I'm sorry if this is spoiled for you. This is a fucking amazing book. You should still read it either way, 100%. Even if you know the ending, it's still an amazing book. But yeah, that is true.
There is no escape. Even that opposition might be a false hope or a safety valve on the utter oppression. What are we supposed to do with that?
Well, I think this is what people would say is sort of like our political system now is like this sort of fake duopoly.
Yes.
Right? It's like this fake, we've got, the Democrats or the liberals and the Republicans, the conservatives, whatever. And it's like, it seemingly is that those are the
Democrats aren't liberals.
only
they're classical liberals. They're not like U.S. liberals.
choices. And yes, as long as the system only allows those choices, well, then those are the only choices. But are those really the only choices? You got to believe this or you got to believe this. I mean, no one really lives their life like that. But unfortunately, the whole system, and in this case, everything that he was led to believe, leaves you with that. And that uncomfortability is even worse.
This is
knowing about it, right? Like, it's easier to just be a guy on one side or the other side, whatever it is, and then just run with it. But to know it and then be like,
what do I do now? Because you look and it seems like no matter who wins the election, no matter which party wins, certain things just keep on happening. We lose more and more of our freedoms. We rack up more and more of our debt. The culture keeps going.
Lose more and more of our freedoms. Hold up. How can you possibly say that some group that has absolutely no legislative power whatsoever and only has any cultural power, and then say that it's their fault that we are losing our freedoms and completely fucking ignore the idea that Trump is in fact against the idea of freedoms that are in any degree opposition to him.
More and more in one direction. It doesn't seem to matter who wins.
I dare make a...
You're right, it doesn't matter who wins, unfortunately, which is something that we should definitely work to change.
Trump comment. I don't know if I'm allowed.
We'll certainly be censored by the Ministry of Truth on the internet.
Somebody's not going to be happy about this. But in many ways, when I was rereading it, I kept thinking, man, what they needed was a Trump. You know what I mean? Because what was Trump, or what is Trump?
Oh my God. Oh my God. That actually hurt. Like no irony. I'm not playing this up. When he just said that actually fucking hurt.
sort of broke through all of this. If you're talking about how do you break the duopoly, how do you break the false choices, how do you break political correctness, all these things, who has been the greatest breaker of those things? It's been Trump. So it's like, in a weird way, if the book had ended and there suddenly was this person who was just willing to do it for some very bizarre reason, and perhaps he was orange and had weird hair.
Another perfect example of how he doesn't fucking understand Orwell.
Like, then I guess you see some hope, but you don't get the orange
I
hair.
hate to be more pessimistic than you, because I see the same sort of thing you do.
Yeah.
I think part of the reason why people in both parties don't like Donald Trump is because he broke the rules. He messed up the system a little.
No. I guess, yeah, broke the rules, but not like the social rules, like the rules that are put in place to try to make sure our president can't do the shit that he's trying to do all the time. Yeah, he's breaking those fucking rules.
Though I do think it sort of remains to be seen if that will have a lasting effect, or if the culture and the...
That makes me not... What Rubin just said makes me not want to fucking finish this video. Oh my god. They needed a Trump?
The politics keeps careening in the same direction.
Yeah.
The question I want to leave...
And I think he knows, too. And I think he knows why that's a dumb thing to say. I think he knows, but he's just being dishonest.
How do you think he did it? What was it that he saw in the 1940s that could predict our present moment?
Yeah, so I thought a lot about that because I had a feeling you might come at me with a question like that, and as I sort of referenced earlier, so he wrote it in the late...
Right-wingers. I'll tell you right now, right-wingers. Anyone who was right-wing, I fucking promise, that's exactly what it was. It's right-wing extremists. I fucking promise you, that's all it was, because Orwell was a socialist, and he was far left.
40s, so you're coming off of World War II. So I don't know specifically, and I'm sure people have thought about this a lot, and I was really trying to think through. I think maybe more than anything else, what makes good literature or what makes a good movie or any piece of art that's true is that it is able to capture something that is timeless. And the struggle constantly, this is why the struggle right now, even though we think of it as Democrat versus Republican or Trump versus Biden or whatever it is, it's like all it really is always is you versus the system. It's the individual versus the system. And sometimes the system...
Yeah, so we should make a system that fucking works for the people, which is not this system.
...is better. Meaning it's more open to freedom and more open to individuals, and sometimes it's not. And
those aren't the only two fucking options. It's not egalitarianism and then just suppression of everything. Those aren't the only two options. There's gradients in between those things. Have a government that actually represents the people.
I think that is what was carried through from 1948, 49 into 2020, and it feels right now that the system is very against the individual. And
I think that might be...
I don't know. Do you have a better answer on that?
I don't know if I have a better answer. I think your point is right, that George Orwell is this individualist, and he's kind of looking out at the system. Though I, again, might have a more pessimistic view on your point about literature. It would seem to me we can see communism fails.
We could see communism fails. All right, pal. By the way, I'm at fucking 1.5, and it's still dragging on so long.
Because it just totally misunderstands human nature. The way communism ends up is so different from the theory of communism. They're so disconnected that it can't work. And the same thing is true of fascism.
Okay, he's not going to give an example.
I think the question we're maybe trying to deal with now is that true of liberalism too? We've got these three great ideologies of modernity: fascism, communism, and liberalism. We thought that liberalism was the last one standing at the end of history. That's what we were told, at least by the people at the end of the Cold War. Well, maybe history takes a little bit longer to resolve. And as
this is what you're bringing to me at the end? You're handing me the is liberalism dead at the end of this thing? This is my life's work.
I know, this is the real thing. You thought that...
This is an incredible sham to get me here.
You thought 1984 was depressing at the end. Yeah. This is the most depressing.
Well, I am glad you brought that up, though, because that is... The part of me that is fearful of what is happening.
Sped it up, still fucking dragging on.
Right now is that the experiment of liberalism and the experiment of free speech and enlightenment and all those things, that it really does feel like it's getting to its end right now. That the end of it is that this more liberal, supposedly this ultra lefty progressive thing, will come in through the soft spot of liberalism, the openness of liberalism, and dismantle every statue, destroy every university, crush every newspaper. I mean, everything.
All the great achievements of liberalism.
And that's exactly what this book is about. So how he saw it, I guess, yes, it is a connection between 10 years before the Nazis were literally burning books. What are we doing right now? We're not burning books yet, although NPR did put out that thing about how you have to decolonize your bookshelf, which in essence is a modern book burning. They're not going to write, burn all your books, but they will say get rid of bad books. 1984.
Right. This is it.
No.
I wish that we could have a greater hope here, but we can't. It is a little chilling.
So what is the hope? What really is the hope? Because as I was reading the end, I kept thinking maybe I'm forgetting that there is a glimmer of hope at the end.
You know what? Here is my hope, I suppose, at the end, which is a little bit of a plug for this show as well. You cannot remain a slave if you are literate and you read. You can't do it. This is why all the totalitarian regimes in history have tried to burn all of the books, have tried to stop people from reading, have tried to have anti-literacy laws. And what George Orwell is describing here, the reason it resonates with, not just now, perhaps at a particularly Orwellian moment, but it has resonated for so many years, is because he is describing something that we know is real, something that we experience to varying degrees throughout our entire relationship to politics.
And he wouldn't fucking agree with you, and he would actively try to stop you from gaining any power because he believes your positions are so fucking dangerous to the continued egalitarian society that he would like.
And as they burn the books, as they topple the statues, as they erase the history, as they memory hole everything that we cherish, that we thought we could rely on, there is still a little bit of hope, I think, for those of us who are willing to crack the spine of a book or two and see the vast difference between reality and all the propaganda that the system is spewing at us.
Knowles, I want to let you end the show with that because it was a perfect,
I do want to point out that books can also be propaganda.
beautiful ending, but I have like 10 things I want to say.
Well, lay on me. Let's do it. This is
this
the time to
idea,
do it
this
before they
idea of the
censor it.
memory hole. I wanted to mention it before,
Yeah.
but don't you feel like that's something we're also going through right now? That we forget. Wait a minute. 2 years ago, the biggest thing was Michael Cohen testimony is going to take down Donald Trump, or Russian this, or
Stormy
Ukraine that,
Daniels.
or remember
Ukraine.
a little before your time, Y2K was going to kill all of us.
Yeah.
That these, what's going to kill us now? 5G is going to kill us, and net neutrality was supposed to kill us, and we killed what's his name in Iran? We killed
Soleimani, World War III.
and that was going to start World War III. But they all get memory holes.
Yeah.
We suddenly were outraged for this period of time, and also even something more perverse. Like, they all happen in these very short bursts also. And then once that period of time is over, you never do it again. So remember Me Too, it burned hot for like 3 weeks. And then the second we like close the book on that, we move on. It's not.
Is that against Me Too? I can't tell. He has such awful takes on everything. I can't tell.
As if those things still aren't happening or something else. But that, and then the other thing was that the phrase Orwellian, it's not just the other phrases, but his name actually became a phrase. That tells you something really good happened.
That tells you he wrote a good book.
Yeah, that's a good book.
About your ideologies, a great book about the things that you believe in and the dangers of them. That's the shit you don't get, and you're either dumb or you're intentionally being misleading.
In the spirit of telling people to go out and read books,
yes,
in the spirit of not burning books, you should tell them to read your book. Don't burn this book.
I'd like to believe, I would like to believe that my book is in many ways the last.
I'm gonna start reading Dave Rubin shit. And I'm going to tell you whether or not it's a good idea to read it.
I mean, I don't want to be so hoity-toity, but
it's better than George Orwell. It's better than 1984.
It is Rubenesque.
It is Rubenesque. Rubin.
Okay, I hope that was a joke, because I promise any absolute piece of fucking camel shit that Dave Rubin can shit out of his stupid fucking dumb shit brain will never, ever, ever be better than 1984.
Rubinian.
It's
Rubinian.
Rubenesque. They would describe a large woman. She was Rubenesque. But it is, in many ways, everything that I wrote about in that book is fighting for the same things that Winston ended up sort of giving away at the end. So read 1984. Forget Don't Burn This Book. It's a good book too, but read 1984.
It's a good sequel.
Yeah, it's a pretty good sequel.
It's a good sequel.
Okay,
This one
If
first.
I end up in a contraption with rats on, I'm putting you. It was Knowles, guys.
I'm going to be on the inner part. I'm going to be the one who ratted you out. You're kidding me? Dave, thank you so much. We can talk
my
about this
pleasure.
all day,
Yeah.
but we'll have to move on to do your book next. I'm Michael Knowles. This is the Book Club. See you next.
Okay. Bye, Michael Knowles. I could not be happier that I'm done listening to you.